Guardiola off a corner. And then before half time, City had taken the lead, and it was an impressive. It was a definite penalty. I'm not sure it was impressive from Rudiger, but it was a bit of manhandling, the sort of thing that goes on. And I think it was a little bit. It was cute by Haaland really to kind
Yeah.
of hold his position. He dispatched the penalty with ease. I think that's the first time that Madrid have been down at half time in a Champions League fixture after having taken the lead for something like 20 years. It was an astonishing length of time. And they showed absolutely no wherewithal to get out of it in the second half. It was really striking how little energy Madrid, this team of, expensively assembled champion talents had. And City could play in second gear. I think there were some good performances across the team. O'Reilly was very impressive. Doku did well on the left. Haaland, continued that he's got that aura up front, which I think really makes a difference. It's intimidated even the Madrid defense, but really they had tougher ask at Fulham last week than they did against Madrid tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned Antonio Rudiger there, and that tussle between him and Erling Haaland is featured on the back page of The Star. They say, ha ha, as the headline, Erling's last laugh over WrestleManiac Rudiger. And James, that was a really interesting battle, wasn't it? But I think it's safe to say Erling Haaland came out on top, and yet again on the score sheet. And it means with that win, City now up to fourth in the Champions League group phase.
Yeah, I mean, this will have had a cathartic feel for City in general, won't it? I mean, they obviously went out to Real Madrid in the Champions League last season, and you could sort of sense that they were out for a little bit of revenge. I thought tonight, and look, I mean, the Bernabeu is one of those places where it can be an absolute bear pit for opponents, and at 1-0 down, we're starting to fear for City a little bit. But I think, in many ways, when we've been critical of them of late for maybe not closing games out and not having a sort of sense of control when they've taken the lead, we should firstly give them credit for finding a way back into the game and turning it around so conclusively and efficiently, and then seeing it out. I mean, Paul's right. Obviously, that Madrid didn't show much, but still, it was a 1-goal margin. Guardiola changed it quite a lot in the second half to try and shut the game down, probably mindful of what happened at Fulham a week earlier. And we should give them some credit for that. And look, I mean, the way that these group stage formats are now with the change, look, they're both still in the top 8. They're both probably still going to qualify automatically. It doesn't really massively promote City's chances of winning it, and it doesn't really denigrate Real Madrid. That's the nature of this sort of bloated format that UEFA have come up with. But what it does do is it's a real sort of signpost of where the ceiling could be for City this season, and they'll feel both at home and abroad that they are starting to show the kind of authority that could get them back to where they want to be after what was obviously a very difficult season for them last year.
Yeah, they're really building some momentum. Complete opposite, though, for their opponents at Real Madrid. And in the back page of The Guardian, they make reference to this. Real pay penalty, they say. Haaland seals win to pile pressure on Alonso. Xabi Alonso, it seems, under real pressure now, Paul, to get this Real Madrid side back on cue. You just wonder whether he'll be given the time to do so. They're 4 points off the leaders Barcelona in La Liga, 7th in the Champions League table, just one win in their last 5 in La Liga, and they were booed, weren't they, by their own fans after that La Liga defeat by Celta Vigo. What will happen to Xabi Alonso, who's only appointed in the summer? Will he make it to Christmas?
If I was a betting man, I think you'd think the writing's on the wall for Xabi Alonso. The players were, I saw screen grabs on social media after the match. All the players were immediately asked after coming off the pitch what they thought of Xabi and were they behind him, and everybody trotted out the line that they were absolutely behind him and it was the players' responsibility. But you didn't see that on the pitch. You didn't see that work ethic, which was necessary to kind of, effectively prize Man City off the ball. And this has been the criticism it's a weird one. It's perverse to an extent because Alonso is being criticised for the performance of his team, while Alonso is saying, I want my team to work harder. I want all the players, including my vaunted attack, to concentrate as much as what they're doing off the ball as what they're doing on it. And that's kind of a prerequisite for most teams. Obviously, that's what Pep Guardiola demands of his players. But the players at Real Madrid have decided, no, we're not going to be told to do that. We are good enough to win games on our own instincts as and when we need to. James talked about that fabled Bernabeu, the legend they've built up over the past few years under Ancelotti, where they can just win games like that. So there's this tension, there's this standoff. And as we always find when these things happen, you can't get rid of all the players. So the person that has to go is the manager, even when they're themselves a Real Madrid legend and thought to be, 18 months ago, the hottest managerial property in world football.
Yeah. So a good night for City then, and a really good night as well for another English team in Arsenal. 3-0 winners at Club Bruges. Back page of the Mirror. They feature, many of the back pages feature this, but in the back page of the Mirror, a nice picture there at the bottom of the page of all the Arsenal players celebrating Noni Madueke's goal, which was absolutely fantastic, that opener. And this, James, was done by an Arsenal side that have been struggling with injury. They rested key players as well, the likes of Saka and Eze. You had Christian Norgard playing at centre-back because of the injury crisis at the club. And it didn't feel laboured at all by this Arsenal team, did it? It felt comfortable.
No, look, they played some great football. The first and third goals were absolutely fantastic. Madueke, of course, they always look better when they're going off the bar. I think that's a cast iron fact of football life. Madueke's first goal, a brilliant long-range strike after, creating the opening himself, really. And Madueke doing that, coming into the team when obviously Saka's been given most of the night off. He came on, of course, late on, but that just, again, we talk about Arsenal's strength in depth and how much they can rotate and still maintain a level of performance. I think we saw that tonight, and they're 6 from 6 in the Champions League. They've got this perfect record in Europe. And I think really more important than any of that really was just for them to bounce back after what happened at Villa Park, and losing that game so late as they did, practically the last kick of the game. Players looked out on their feet. No surprise that Declan Rice, I don't think, was involved tonight. I thought he looked absolutely shattered at Villa Park on Saturday. And the danger for Arsenal is that this big question mark that we have about them, about their mentality, about their ability under pressure to execute what we know they can do when perhaps the pressure isn't so intense. Well, these are sort of the little questions that get asked in these midweek games when you have to come back straight away. Of course, they've got Wolves next in the Premier League, and you'd think at home that's, it is technically the easiest game you could have at the moment. So going to Bruges and winning as comfortably as they did, and then you assume they'll build on that with, you would again assume a win against Wolves on Saturday. That then gives them the chance to put that Villa defeat firmly behind them.
Yep, the only team in the Champions League with that 100% record, 6 games, 6 wins. And only 4 other English teams have won their first 6 European Cup games in this competition. Manchester United, Leeds, Liverpool, City, and now Arsenal as well. OK, not such a good night for Newcastle, though. Pegged back to 2-2 after conceding another late goal. Back page of the Express, a grim ending for Toon. This is a common theme, isn't it, Paul, where Newcastle United get themselves into a position of strength and then concede yet another late goal.
Yeah, I think it's going to be particularly frustrating because they had a really good second half, and for about a half an hour spell, they absolutely battered Leverkusen after having gone 1-0 down in the first half and generally struggling a bit to find the right tempo. In the second half, they came out with all guns blazing, really. And there was some great performances, and particularly I think that the second goal was lovely. Anthony Gordon, it scored the first goal with a penalty, sending the fullback for a loop, picking out a cross that lands precisely on the penalty spot. And there's Lewis Miley, all 6'4" of him. I didn't realise he was that tall, bundling over in marker and powering the header in. It was just a real good mix of technique, drive, but also the physical side. And they really started to boss Leverkusen, and they were rattled. They hit the post a couple of times, Newcastle, could have scored more. But then Alex Grimaldo sort of bundled in an equaliser, quite canny really, but went straight through the middle of the Newcastle defence. And afterwards, I think Eddie Howe was I mean, he wasn't smiling. He was, and his criticism of the team, he was pretty negative in most of what he said. The only thing I felt was that it belied I think the fact that he could fess up to that stuff. Maybe he thinks that we're still going in the right direction, because I think you can take a lot of solace from the level of the performance. These are the German champions of not last season, but the season before.
Yeah.
They're not mugs. There are good things to take away from there, but yeah, that's going to be a real sickener, and it does leave. It's mean Newcastle in the playoffs. They've got work to do still in this European campaign.
Yeah, they're 12th in the table now, 2 points off the top 8. And, it's not the end of the world to get a draw, but it would have just, for them to have got that win, would have set them up nicely, wouldn't they? Because they've got a big derby match coming up on Sunday against arch rivals Sunderland, the first time that there's been this type of derby in the Premier League since 2016. OK, Paul, James, thank you for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Telegraph: Saudi clubs to do whatever it takes to sign outcast Salah. See you soon. James, what do you think about this? Do you see it as what's being said in public is actually what's being reflected behind closed doors, and his teammates aren't mad at him?
Well, I mean, what else can they say? They have to say that, really. And I think Liverpool have got a really sort of difficult position to navigate over the next few days, which is that you assume that Mohamed Salah's career at Liverpool is coming to an end, but Liverpool can't sort of make that clear and be as decisive and ruthless about it in public as perhaps they might want to be, because it diminishes his value. If publicly and privately everybody knows that Liverpool are now in a position where Mo Salah's made his career untenable at that club and he is going to move on, Liverpool can't. You're just driving down the price of the player in January if you're essentially just publicly admitting, well, he's got no future here. So I think Arne Slot and the players have to kind of navigate this as best they can by just saying, well, look, you know, there are internal conversations. You know, you sort of put the barriers up, really. And look, I mean, it's one thing for Mo Salah to say what he said. I thought the sort of choreographed, timed tweet of him in the gym the next day was just completely unnecessary. It's, you know, we all know what he's doing there. He sort of made the point already, really. So now it's going to be, of course, a case of Arne Slot speaking again about it on presumably Friday, when I'm guessing his press conference will be, and then of course they play Brighton, and that won't be a choreographed goodbye, as Salah seemed to be alluding to, because why would that be in the club's interest to do that? You're just advertising the fact that you know you're ready to sell, and the Saudi clubs who are clearly going to make a move for him in January are not going to offer the sort of going market rate. So it's a very, very delicate situation, and it's one that Mohamed Salah has created. This is the fallout of such a high-profile player putting himself at odds with all of the senior figures at the club and asking them to deal with the fallout from it. So, yeah, what else can they say?
Yeah. Back page of the Telegraph, if Salah is to go, perhaps Saudi Arabia might be the destination here, Paul. What do you think? Saudi clubs to do whatever it takes to sign outcast Salah. He's still under contract with Liverpool until 2027. If he does leave, could Saudi Arabia be the destination?
I'd be surprised if there were any other destination than Saudi Arabia, to be honest. I think it's the only competition that's really got the money, particularly in January, to be able to spend. I went to Saudi to watch Jordan Henderson's debut from Al Ettifaq a couple of years ago. Boy, was it hot, 47 degrees in the day. But what you picked up from talking to executives around the league competition was that Salah was the one they wanted. This was in the middle of all the splurging for players. They were buying a lot of players, but Salah was the one. He is a Muslim icon across the world. To have him in the Saudi Pro League, they think would supercharge its popularity. So I can absolutely believe the reports that are coming out. You know, they went for him. They were interested in signing him in the summer until he renewed the deal. So, you know, there is a way in which you can look at this whole affair and see that, well, the new deal was a way to ultimately secure a fee from the Pro League for his services. But yeah, I'd be absolutely astonished if they don't come in from him, and at a 100 million plus figure, I would imagine, or certainly high ends of running up to that. And the question is, which club out of those does he go to? There are several of them owned by the Public Investment Fund. They'll sort of work out where he's best placed. Yeah. Al Hilal appears to be the rumours, but yeah, they'll definitely be in for him, no doubt about it.
Yeah, likely to draw big money, as you say. OK, back page of the Times. I want to draw your attention to this one, Paul. I'll stay with you for this. FIFA in row over Pride match. This is on the right-hand sidebar there. FIFA coming under pressure to intervene over the staging of the World Cup game between Egypt and Iran, which has been designated as a Pride match by the local organisers in Seattle. But the Egyptian and Iranian federations have complained to FIFA over the planned celebration of LGBTQ plus Pride marches that's due to coincide with that match. Paul, I know you've written about this as well. What's your take on how this ends?
Well, I got this real sense that people were trying to diffuse things today. And I think the idea that they're trying to say, well, it has been called a Pride match by Seattle organisers, but their intent to celebrate both the World Cup and LGBTQ rights and freedoms at the same time is largely going to be it is exclusively going to be conducted in the city. The city has no control over the stadium on World Cup match days. That's completely under FIFA's control. And as far as I understand from my reporting conversations today, FIFA has never had any plans to do anything Pride related in the stadium during the match. They have their own campaigns and they'll be running those. Rainbow flags will be allowed in. People will be allowed to go in and express their own individual things, but there'll be nothing inside the stadium. So I think what they're gonna try and do is say to Egypt and Iran, we're not putting you in an environment an immediate environment that you can claim is politicized. This is going to be the World Cup as you understood it, but Seattle, has their right to do what they want to do and to celebrate the values they hold. I think there'll be some sort of diplomatic attempt to find a balance there. But, it's true that certainly the Egyptians wrote a lengthy complaint to FIFA about this branding of the match.
Yeah, two worlds colliding here. We'll wait to see how this one plays out, and I'm sure we'll feature it again on Back Pages tonight. OK. Darts coming up, the World Championships. Back page of the Star, Gold Flinger is the headline there at the top of the page. Nukes fired up for £1 million booty. It's the first time that darts has had a £1 million jackpot. Luke Littler, of course, the defending champion, James. This looks set to be one of the most competitive and maybe one of the most exciting World Championships we've seen in darts.
Now it's Christmas, right? It's now officially Christmas. The darts have started. We can finally put the party hats on. Yeah, I mean, look, he's been by some distance, obviously the best player of the year, and the only thing that's probably going to stop him is Luke Littler. It's difficult to see anyone else. I mean, obviously there's a lot made of the rivalry with Luke Humphries, and clearly he'll be out to get one over on his old foe. But so many of the players have been beaten so heavily by Littler time after time after time. You sort of feel he just has this psychological hold over the rest of the field at the moment, and that maybe the only thing that can stop him is the format of the early rounds, because you just sort of think, well, he's with set play, and when the matches get longer, his quality is just such at a level that nobody can really live with him. But we've seen him kind of wobble in the early rounds. I think last year he had a really big wobble early on and sort of confessed to being quite nervous in those early rounds, and that's maybe the only time when you could get a player who's perhaps got nothing to lose and feels as though he can just embrace the moment and try and take advantage of any kind of chink in Littler's armour. But you just sort of feel if he comes through that, you just don't really see anyone who can stop him. Yeah,
go on then. We have to get your predictions. We're coming to time, but Paul, in a word, who's going to win?
The Nuke.
Yes, nice and easy. James, who's going to win?
I can't say anything other than Littler now, can you?
That's fair. Yeah, Luke gets his round one game underway against Darius Labanauskas in the opening round, live on Sky Sports. Now, thank you, James Olley, Paul McGuinness. Great to have your company. If you missed any of the show, it's another chance to see Back Pages tonight, hour, as always, and it's available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can join us again on Thursday night, where our guests will be Charlie Wyatt and Izan Khan. Looking forward to chatting to them on Thursday. Coming next here on Sky Sports News, more reaction to the Champions League football. A brilliant night for City. They come from behind to beat Real Madrid 2-1 and pile yet more pressure on the Real Madrid boss, Xabi Alonso.